Welcome to Northern Tech Live 2020, presented by GP Bullhound. My name is Edie Lush. I'm a broadcast journalist, a podcaster, and I have a very strong interest in technology and entrepreneurship. Today, we are here to celebrate and highlight the heroes of the digital economy, based in the north of England and Scotland. According to McKinsey, in just 10 weeks, we have vaulted forward 5 years in consumer and business digital adoption. And the north of the UK has been very much part of that. Northern Tech Live is the online version of the Northern Awards 2020. Today, we're going to reveal the Northern Tech Awards fastest growing company of the year and the fastest growing larger company of the year. We will showcase the top 15 Northern stars with the most potential to become scale-ups of the future. And we will reveal the top 50 fastest growing technology companies through 3 short videos. This event will last no longer than an hour, 20 minutes, and a recording of the session will be available to you tonight. More information on Northern Tech Live and the full top 100 league table can be found on northerntech.awards.com. Our thanks to the Northern Tech Awards sponsors for their support and for making this online event possible. Let's now remind ourselves about what this event is here to celebrate. Have a look at a few amazing moments of the Northern Tech Awards from the last 6 years.
Let's support and promote a new generation of entrepreneurs that are younger, hungrier, more connected, more global, and just as ambitious.
To win awards like these, first and foremost, you need innovation, because these awards are all about technology and how technology is disrupting the world all around us.
And now we're back in Manchester, which begs the question, where will we be in the future?
For those of you just joining us, a very warm welcome to Northern Tech Live, presented by GP Bullhound. There is much more about the Northern Tech Awards top 100 league table at northerntech.awards.com. I'm now delighted to hand over to Hugh Campbell, founder and managing partner of GP Bullhound, to tell us a bit more about these awards and why we're all here today.
Great. So thanks, Edie. And it's fantastic to have a real pro comparing the event today. A lot of TV production values are going into this, and we're learning on the fly. It's fantastic. Well, we've got a packed schedule for you this afternoon. A super talented group of entrepreneurs will be speaking to us, interlaced with some key findings from our research into the Northern Tech ecosystem. So for those of you that don't know GP Bullhound, and I can see Actually, it's fantastic news. We have more people on this live webinar than we could have actually fitted into the space in Leeds back in March. So that's pretty cool. But for those of you that don't know us, we advise and invest in the world's best technology companies and founders. And we've made it our life's ambition to be part of building those businesses, and those businesses that really try to change the world in which we live in today. They have revenues, profit, and perhaps most importantly, impact. And we do this by focusing on 5 core sectors, and you'll see these on the slide, all of them with a real focus on companies with what I would call a software brain. In each of these areas, we write regular research, which you'll see on our website, we host events, and most importantly, we do deals. Now, as Edie said, and you saw in the video, the Northern Tech Awards has been running since 2014 as a way to bring together the region's best CEOs and founders, really for one night only, to celebrate success. We started in Manchester, and then as you'll see on this slide, we went to Leeds, Liverpool, Newcastle, and Edinburgh. This is, however, of course, the first time we've hosted the event in the cloud. The top 100 list also showcases to investors, to the media, to corporates, from people outside our tech ecosystem in the North, what we're capable of. And I think this is a critical counterweight to the coverage and also the excitement generated by the tech scene in London. Now you can see on this next slide a quick summary of the previous winners, from world-beating social media sites like the Lad Bible to e-commerce giants like THG, formerly known as The Hut, and AI success stories like Peak. Now, if I could buy 1% of this portfolio of companies, that would be a great portfolio to be proud of. Now, as you know, each year we publish a piece of research called the Tech Titans, and the team are actively trying to prepare that for its release later this month. And this charts the meteoric growth of the European tech ecosystem, with a particular focus on companies worth over $1 billion. Now, I think today there are about 80 such companies in our pan-European index, and believe it or not, 10 of them are in this region, and that's really good going. I mean, take a look at this chart here, from Sage at the top at 7.6 billion, all the way to Craneware at the bottom of this chart, worth 500 million pounds out of Edinburgh. And this chart really shows the breadth of our skills across technology, from data analytics at GB Group, and we'll be hearing a lot more about them from Richard Law, the former CEO, later today, to software robots at Blue Prism, and we were lucky enough to have Dave Moss give the keynote at last year's awards. And you can also see our strength in the region in consumer internet with brands such as Money Supermarket, Boohoo, Skyscanner, which is now part of Ctrip in China, all attracting massive global attention. Scotland is well represented by Craneware and Skyscanner, Yorkshire with Anaplan, which was founded in York, and of course Skybet. So for a bit of fun, we've created the GP Bullhound Northern Tech Index, launched today, in fact right now. And what this chart shows is the relative performance of all of the public tech companies in the North versus the FTSE 100. And the dark line is the FTSE and the blue line is our index. And so if you'd invested £1 in this index back in 2015, you'd now have £1.38p versus 93p if you'd invested in the FTSE, which is pretty interesting. So I guess one proxy for the success of this region over the last 5 years is this index, and we're doing pretty bloody well. It's just another illustration really of the value being created for shareholders by creative and hardworking founders all across this region. Now, I'd like to hand over to my great friend and co-founder, Per. And Per's going to provide us not with a Northern tech view, but with a 10,000-foot view on what he thinks is going on in the economies and stock markets around the world. Hi, Per, it's great to have you with us.
Hi,
Welcome
Hugh.
aboard.
It's a pleasure to be on. Great. Well, I think the last 10 weeks have been a true black swan event. Exactly one of those things that unless you have Bill Gates' predictive powers, you couldn't predict. To give you some sense of the scale of the event, US announced data today that all US production in April dropped with 40%. Never happened before in their history. US employment has gone from under 4% to 15% at the moment. The Euro area is expected to have unemployment between 8 and 12% and decline in real GDP in low double-digit numbers. You have to go back to the Second World War to see anything like that. So truly quite spectacular. And as we saw a huge chart, which is a chart you could show, I think, anywhere in the world at the moment, is the initial reaction of the markets were very strong and very negative. But then due to huge stimulus packages launched by almost every country, coupled with still a lot of, I would say, bull market enthusiasm in the market, and several other aspects like large amounts of capital struggling to find alternative homes, the markets rebounded in a dramatic fashion. And right now, if you look stateside, we're trading kind of minus low single teens. Europe and UK kind of high teens, the most hit countries in the mid-20s, and similar stories in Asia. So not in any way reflecting what we're seeing on the unemployment and lack of production side of the equation. So that creates a lot of uncertainty around this black swan. But then, and we'll have to wait for some journalists to come up with a smarter quip here, this black swan also bore a child, a white swan coming out of this, which is of course the digital sector where we all operate, where in many cases this new environment has massively accelerated the adoption to digital. And a really skilled entrepreneur said to me a few years ago, when we were talking about the scale of their ginormous success, that we still are only scratching the surface because you and I never meet the vast majority that are yet not fully digital in their work life, in their personal life, and so forth. And he predicted 6-7 years ago that we were just at the beginning of this adoption curve. And I have to give him 5 stars on that forecast, seeing what is going on, you know, in education, in the workforce, and in home entertainment at the moment. And I wanted to share some highlights of that. ByteDance, the owner of TikTok, announced today that they delivered $3 billion of profit last year, which of course is going to look like a very small number compared to the profit that TikTok will have delivered the first half of this year, which will most likely dwarf the market value of all those companies that Hugh showed on that slide earlier. Zoom, that we're on right now, are currently trading at a $44 billion market cap. But bear in mind that their total revenues in 2019 were only $330 million. So the world is turning towards our industry and awarding it greatly, in some cases maybe insanely, to be seen. We see our own public investment strategy, we're plus 13% year to date, even though we're mainly holding the most conservative stories like Google, Microsoft, Salesforce, and so forth. Nintendo, the game developer, sold out of all Switches, their hardware globally, a console that is now 5 years old. unprecedented. Fortnite, that currently has 350 million registered players, logged 3.3 billion hours of playtime in April alone. So this is the beauty of homeschooling. You go from math to headshots. Disney launched their Disney Plus subscription service, and in 5 months have gone to 55 million paying subscribers in a paid-only model. Also unprecedented in our business. Slack, that we use for business, have from October to March gone from 12 to 44 million daily active users, and broke a record a couple of weeks ago when they had more than 12 million people using the service online at the same time and without going down, mind you. Numbers that were mind-boggling in the minds of forecasters only as recently as January of this year. With that, I think we have to recognize that we are heading into a recessionary environment, and even technology at large cannot go totally unscathed by. So I would be cautious in regards to the earnings from Q2 that we will see come out in July and August, and also in the following 2, 3, 4 quarters thereafter. Who knows in that kind of short time frame? It's a game of volatility and a game of psychology. But I feel very confident that the activities that you all engage with in a perspective of 5 years from now will have gained at least a year in your trajectory by what just have happened over the last 10 weeks. And a lot of that is gonna be very, very sticky. So for me, who come from the north of Scandinavia, it's a real pleasure to join this event at the north of England. And I can only agree with Hugh that it's tremendous to see all the success here in the north of UK. Wonderful. And I think with that, I'll hand over to the next speaker.
Thank you, Per. I don't know if I'm proud or not to say that those companies that you mentioned there, TikTok, Fortnite, the Disney Channel, have played a very strong role in my house for the last 10 weeks. So I'm now very pleased to introduce Javed Hook from GP Bullhound to take us through some of the insights from the top 100 league table.
Great. Thanks, Edie, and thanks again for everyone for joining. I guess hosting the Northern Tech Awards is great for so many reasons. You know, not only do we get to throw a massive party every year for so many of the region's top founders, investors, and operators, but it also gives us some really interesting insights into what the local ecosystem is doing and where the new exciting pockets of activity are emerging. This often acts as a precursor to what deal activity is likely to take place in the future, so it's always great to see how deal activity has trended over time. 2019 was a record year for M&A activity in the region, with 74 deals closing throughout the year. And this is a full recovery following the drop in 2017, which we believe was significantly impacted by the UK's vote to leave the EU. Deal values are not always as widely reported as volumes, but we did not see the same size of transactions in 2019 like we did in 2018, such as the sale of Core Credit to GTCR and the sale of Sky Betting and Gaming to Stars Group. However, we were very pleased to see some fantastic exits for founders and businesses, which have been part of the Northern Tech Awards in recent years. Rob Wild and his team at Volcanic successfully sold the Stockport-based company to Access Group in January of 2019. And Sumo Digital continued its amazing journey, having gone through multiple PE rounds with North Edge and Berwyn, and a very successful IPO with the acquisition of Red Kite Games. Furthermore, we're also really pleased to see exits for Gareth Edwards and his team at Cubic Motion, and for Carl Wong and his team at Living Lens earlier this year, which is based in Liverpool. The strong M&A environment in North was ably supported by lots of fundraising activity, as 2019 saw another year-on-year increase in the number of funding rounds completed. 2019 for me saw a real step up in the caliber of investors which deployed capital in the region. That can be demonstrated by deals such as Matthew Scullion and the team at Matillion closing a 35 million funding round with Battery Ventures, having raised $20 million from Sapphire and Scale less than 2 years prior. In the automotive space, Wejo announced a massive round led by General Motors, and Track Global secured £40 million from Three Hills. Finally, at the beginning of this year, we also saw Partnerize and Zero Light, which are both founded in Newcastle, raise $50 million from Axel KKR and £10 million from PON, respectively. The next slide shows that not only are the number of funding rounds closing in the north are continuing to increase, but the size of these rounds are getting bigger too. 25% of all rounds done in the first quarter of this year were more than £5 million, which demonstrates how businesses in the region are becoming more mature and strongly evidencing their product market fit. Nevertheless, we cannot forget the importance that local angel networks and seed investors play on our ecosystem, and I would encourage anyone who can become as active as they can within these networks. Moving on, one of the most exciting trends we've seen through the data is the fact that the North is now attracting some of the most high-profile specialist investors into the region. Whilst there have always been a number of rounds led by investors which are headquartered outside of the UK, such as FTV investing into True Potential back in 2016, we've seen a significant number of really high-profile investors come on board. I've already mentioned the likes of AKKR and Battery Ventures, but we also saw Marlin Equity take a minority stake in Smart Search, based in Yorkshire. K1, the Los Angeles-based investment firm, invested $25 million into Aplearn. And Remilia raised another £11.5 million from 8 Roads and Kennet Partners, having raised $25 million back in 2017. So having taken a brief look at some of the deal data which has emerged over the past few years, I want to focus briefly on some of the key findings which have come out of the Northern Tech Awards. As Hugh mentioned before, 2020 is the 7th time that we've hosted the awards. And some of the stats which have come out of that I find quite remarkable. For example, we've had over 1,500 attendees, more than 600 different companies have entered the awards, and in 2020, the cumulative revenue of the top 100 was more than £3 billion. The growth and size of companies participating in Northern Tech Awards is quite staggering, having increased by more than 20% year on year since 2017. What makes this statistic to me even more impressive is the fact that some of the biggest companies around the North, which have been involved in the awards previously, are no longer included in that list, such as Skyscanner, Blue Prism, and Boohoo.com. This scale clearly demonstrates how important the Northern tech community is becoming to the wider UK economy. Moving on to the next slide, this unsurprisingly coincides with a sharp increase in the number of larger companies which form part of the top 100, up to 26 this year from 19 in 2019. Just as a reminder, a company qualifies as a larger company in the NTAs if it had more than 10 million of revenue at the beginning of the 3 years before the event date. So for 2020, larger companies would have had revenue of £10 million or more in 2017. This continued maturity of the sector is reflected in the growth rates of the overall top 100. However, it's fantastic to see that there are still a healthy numbers of companies growing at more than 100% year on year, which is an amazing achievement. Finally, I wanted to touch how the spread of the NTA Top 100 is branching out across all sectors and the regions. On the left-hand side of this chart, you can see that software and fintech companies are forming a greater part of the top 100 in 2020 compared to 2017, which to me demonstrates how local companies are able to retain top engineering talent and build what can be arguably described as more technology-intensive businesses. It is also pleasing to see that there are a growing number of companies making it into the top 100 from outside the Northwest and Yorkshire. People often ask us where we draw the line for the Northern Tech Awards, and it's important to point out that the Midlands is very much included. So we hope to see more companies emerge from there in the future. That brings me to the end of this section, so I'm very happy to hand over back to Edie to take us to the next part of the webinar. I hope to see you all again in person in the not too distant future.
Thank you, Javed. So who has made it into that league table? Let's now look at a countdown of companies ranking from 50 to 23. congratulations to our first 27 companies. That full top 100 league table will be available on the Northern Tech Awards homepage, and my friends at GP Bullhound will send it to you together with the recording of this event after it finishes later on tonight. Now, let me introduce you to three of the people who are helping to build big tech in the North. I'd like to bring into my online studio Malcolm Cowley, the CEO of Partnerize, a marketing technology company, Carl Cavers, CEO of Sumo Group, award-winning game developer, and Stephen Roberts, investment director at ECI Partners Private Equity. So welcome.
Hi there, Edie.
Hi.
Hello. So have we got Carl as well? Yes. So Carl, let's start with you. You are coming out of this lockdown period quite strong. Your results have come out. The stock price looks healthy. You've even completed an acquisition during lockdown. You've got 11 studios creating games and over 600 staff. Tell me, first of all, why you moved your people home before being ordered to do so by the government, and what you've learned from the experience that you're going to take forward.
Interesting. We've actually got more than 700 people now, so we're growing quite quickly. I'm not sure lockdown. We are coming out of lockdown. It seems like we're going to be staying in it for a bit longer. What's really taken us by surprise has been the efficiency with which we've been able to move from an office environment to working from home. We took the decision in February to look at this as a case of not if we're going to work from home, but when we're going to work from home. We made a significant investment in our infrastructure. We ripped up our original business continuity planning. We changed to a full cloud-based VPN system. We put various bits of hardware in place to allow us to facilitate working from home. And we spent a lot of time ensuring that everybody going home was in the best shape with all the right equipment and access to the right services.
And was the IP a challenge as well?
It was. Obviously, we work on a lot of confidential IP, and taking it from our secure location, required a lot of support from our clients. We were able to do that. We've had various, independent penetration tests done since moving to work from home environment. And in fact, from a technology point of view, we seem to be just as secure as we were when we were office based. And that has required a significant investment, but it's been well worth it. But what's been really pleasing to see is just the way all of our people have taken to working from home. Productivity is just as good as it was in the office. People are extremely well connected. I think we're in a very fortunate industry where people adopt technology very readily. I think if we'd have asked people in a survey in January if they were going to be comfortable using video conferencing in the same way as they have been over the last 10 weeks, the answer would have been no. But it's amazing how people adopt quickly, and it's been wonderful to see.
So Malcolm, let's come to you now. Partnerize does very clever marketing technology. It helps form and monetize marketing commissions between brands and their partners. You also have completed an acquisition during lockdown. Tell me about how and why, despite the market uncertainty in the future, you decided to still go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Edie. It wasn't obviously in the plan, but we decided to complete this acquisition primarily because of the strategic rationale. It was just so strong on this deal, and we've known the brand Verity team. That was the company that we bought. We've known their team in tech for years. They're the market leader in the space in the US, so it was just a great opportunity to acquire them, but also a larger footprint of clients in the US as well. We're all about helping customers to drive growth via digital partnerships. So as Roman mentioned, that's definitely where people are sort of moving to and will move to faster now, I think, because of the virus. So it was just a real opportunity for us, for our business to bring in a brand safety and compliance tool set, to help kind of make those partnerships more more appealing to our customers. And we get to add that automated suite of tools at a time when a lot of companies are kind of pulling back on investment. I think that's great value add for our customers in this time. They see us invest in, and that feature set's just a real halo feature set for us across all of our kind of future M&A activity.
You've been signing some potentially surprising customers up during COVID-19. Is that right?
Yeah, been pleasantly surprised during the entire lockdown, actually, at how bookings have continued. In fact, since we went on to lockdown, we started a weekly all hands. We're a global business, so that's always a bit of a challenge to get everybody on one call. But we thought, let's do it once a week. Keep everybody updated. And it's actually the sales updates that have served as probably the most motivational news for the whole team. So, first up, kind of early in the lockdown, we signed a cruise line.
Wow.
Expect. And then last week in Asia, we signed an airline. And I've heard there is a late stage deal in Redlines for a restaurant booking app. So we're, some surprising ones. We're just about to ink today, actually, a $1 million deal with a global hotel chain. So it's really proven nothing's impossible. And, I think it's a great sign that spending on SaaS and, and digital marketing continues even in the hardest hit sectors.
Okay, and the new normal will include some measure of the old world as well. So Stephen, ECI Partners is a private equity fund, just raised its 11th fund, invests equity of £30 million and up in businesses valued up to £250 million. So give me an example of a couple of your portfolio companies that have responded really creatively, at some point I'll get the word out, during this whole process.
Yeah, of course. I guess all of our management teams have had to respond creatively in some way, whether that's the operational challenges of more flexible working or working through the impacts on supply chains and routes to market. It's impacted all the businesses in some way. Specific businesses that I would probably point to, firstly, CPOMs. So we've a number of businesses within our portfolio that are helping their own customer base to adapt to the challenges brought about by COVID, and CPOMs is an example of that. So CPOMs provides safeguarding software into schools. It's a business based in Skipton in Yorkshire. And school closures and remote learning has made paper-based traditional safeguarding processes, which CPOMs is typically replacing, very difficult or pretty much impossible, at a time when vulnerable children are often at increased risk. And so one of the steps that business has taken is made a version of its product available free of charge during lockdown to schools who don't currently have an electronic safeguarding solution. And that has helped those schools to fulfill their safeguarding obligations during lockdown, and hopefully shown them the value of CPOM's products for the longer term. And then another business that a number of businesses actually have had to be more creative operationally. A good example of that would be Moneypenny, which is a call answering and live chat service provider based in Wrexham, and similar to many businesses on the call, I'm sure, pretty much overnight they moved to having 650 employees working from home with remote access to internal IT platforms, and that took a lot of creative thinking and a lot of hard work and the purchase of several hundred laptops and various other bits of kit to make that possible. But the remote worker model has been rolled out across the UK and the US businesses, with minimal disruption to service and actually seen improvement in operational KPIs.
So let's move away from COVID for the moment. Carl, tell me about taking private equity capital. Why did you take it? And tell me how your experience has been. Oh, but you got to come off mute first.
That's the challenge. So we used private equity to buy the business back in 2014, having sold it to a US media company in 2007. We were actually backed by North Edge Capital, who were based in Manchester. And in fact, that's how I met Hugh. Hugh was one of the advisors on the deal and helped us tremendously steer through that complicated first-time private equity raise, and it was invaluable. So we did that in 2014. We were very successful with the backing of North Edge. We then did a secondary buyout in 2016 to help us accelerate even more with our strategic initiatives, with the plan of going to market at the end of 17, which we successfully did in December 2017. But it's been a great experience all the way through for us. And I'd encourage anybody that wants to really look at strategically pushing on with the business, considering private equity as a real way to do that.
And Malcolm, you've also taken investment recently from Accel KKR. Tell me why you chose them.
Yeah, that's right. We completed a 50 million raise actually in December. So
that was good timing.
Really fortunate in hindsight, yeah. And we're in a fantastic position now, obviously, with capital on the balance sheet, during what is arguably a buyer's market. I think with the AKKR guys, we just saw a huge opportunity to build a platform in our space through inorganic growth. So private equity kind of made sense, but I've been really impressed. The relationship side so far. I'm a real convert. We'd only taken venture capital money before that, and this team at AKKR, was pitching very much, on becoming our corporate development team, and they've lived up to that pitch and more already. Helping us both kind of source and execute on acquisitions. And I'll give you an example. Like each week we have a pipeline call. Which is made up of senior management and partners over at AKKR, and we basically run through opportunities, acquisition opportunities that are in play, make calls on where to cut bait, where we want to dig in further, and the work to put that pipeline together kind of starts obviously with management team and investors agreeing on the strategy, and then the AKKR folks canvass the market. Find all the relevant and actionable opportunities, and then we discuss them, filter them. So while it's super collaborative, it takes a lot of the legwork away from the management team, so we can just focus on executing on the core business. And actually, they're also, because we just completed that acquisition, so I'm starting to see how they work with us on integrating the acquired business as well, and there's a lot of kind of muscle on their team that's helping us post sale. So plan was to hit the ground running and buy multiple companies in 2020, and I'm happy to see the virus hasn't slowed us down one bit.
So Stephen, tell me what areas of technology may be interesting for investment in the coming years, given where we are now.
Yeah, of course. Well, I think the first thing I'd say is that I think Northern tech as a sector will continue to attract investment. It's looking likely that we are heading into a recessionary environment, as someone mentioned earlier, and I think in periods of economic uncertainty, from my perspective as an investor, there's inevitably a flight to resilience, and tech businesses generally enjoy resilient business models and often serve sort of non-discretionary needs. And then within that sort of tech sphere, I think there are a number of areas of tech that are particularly interesting. I suppose touching on something that Per and Hugh said earlier, I think COVID will change the way that we work for the long term. And I think tech businesses enabling flexible working will continue to benefit from that. So you've seen software businesses like Zoom, we've seen their valuations soar. I think businesses in and around that flexible working space, businesses like Moneypenny in our portfolio, but also IT managed services and B2B comms providers in and around that space, I think will continue to do well. And then attached to that, I think cybersecurity. I think it will become increasingly important and increasingly difficult, frankly, to manage cybersecurity with people logging in from a range of devices and different locations. I think that's an interesting area for investment. And then sort of adjacent to that, to flexible working, I think employee well-being. you know, how you manage, engage, interact with, incentivize a geographically disparate workforce, and how do you look after your employees' physical and mental well-being. I think there's a number of businesses in the audience that are helping employers answer those kind of questions. And I think that's a really interesting space right now as well.
Thank you. So we're running out of time. I want to get some quick fire answers now. One from each of you. What do you think the North can do better? Carl.
I think it needs to be more interconnected. It's a shame I can get to London quicker than I can get to Liverpool or Newcastle, for example. And seeing that investment, I think this is a great opportunity.
I ask these questions fully aware that I'm right underneath the flyover to Heathrow. And in fact, I'm very close to HS2. So Malcolm, what about one for you? Give a tip for the next generation of Northern tech founders. What was the one tip you'd give them now?
Yeah, I think make your way to Hugh's office and get him in your phone book. Yeah, certainly massive help for us on our journey working with the guys from GP Bullhound. I know it sounds like a plug, but it's absolutely true. I was just telling someone from Singapore that today, Hugh. So want some brownie points there. But yeah, outside of that, for the North, I mean, our headquarters are in Newcastle. I think for the North certainly needs founder money coming back in. Somebody mentioned that earlier, on the angel investing side. So I think there could be more to help people kind of connect there and connect to opportunities and deal flow. I'd certainly be interested in that. And I think as you get some of these founders kind of exiting the businesses, much larger businesses, they need to bring that capital back and invest at grassroots.
Okay, and last very quick one for you, Stephen. What do you think is the biggest advantage that the North has?
I think, I think there's a number of high-profile Northern tech success stories, and businesses like the Hut, Boohoo, Skybet, Partnerize, and Sumo, on the panel. I think the Northern tech success stories will attract, train the best graduates, keep them in the region, and continue to build the talent base within the region. And added to that, I think we've got a genuine deals ecosystem, including advisors, lawyers, venture capital, private equity. Clearly, I'm slightly biased as part of that, but I think that's important. Fast growth tech businesses in the region are able to get the advice they need from local advisors that they know and trust, and then hopefully receive the investment that they need to be able to continue to grow and hopefully remain in the North for the long term.
Thank you very much, Stephen, and thank you to Malcolm and Carl as well. We will let you go for now because it's now time to reveal the companies ranked 22 to 11. Congratulations to everyone. And that full top 100 league table will be available on the Northern Tech Awards homepage tonight. We're going to come to our final ranking in a moment, and I'm really pleased now to bring up on screen Richard Law. He's the chairman of Vypr and Pebble Group, and he's also the former CEO of GB Group. As CEO, he grew GB Group from a valuation of £5 million to one that was worth £500 million. And in doing so, he transformed this company that worked in offline customer information and marketing services to one that's a global technology specialist in fraud, location, and identity data intelligence. But he wasn't always a data miner. In fact, his first job was as a coal miner. So welcome, Richard. First of all, hello. I would love you to tell me about that first job. Tell me what that was like, and welcome to the beachfront fireplace.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Thanks, Edie. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm originally from Yorkshire, which is well known for its coal mining. And when I left school, I didn't really have a huge idea of what I wanted to do. My grandfather had been a miner, my father had been a miner for all their careers, and so I for want of a better thing to do, I went to be a coal miner. And actually, I really loved the geology, and yeah, it was a really interesting place to be. And I eventually went to university and did a degree in geology and engineering. And then I spent the next 5 years of my career going around the world, digging big holes and blowing things up, which was, it was great. It was great fun. But there's a directly inverse correlation between centers of rich ore deposits and civilization, and it just wasn't somewhere to settle and build a life. So I came back to the UK, came back to the north, and I was attracted to the really early stage technology environment and sector. I came there via a stint at EY, and since that time, obviously, the tech sector in the north has just transformed. It's humongously changed.
So tell me about some of the starkest changes that you see now in the north from when you first arrived back in Manchester.
Yeah, sure. So when I came back to the north in the 90s, our whole region was really in a transition phase between the post-industrial era and new emerging businesses, technology businesses. And that was a really, really difficult time for the whole region. But, what's been achieved has been absolutely fantastic. You wouldn't recognize the region now from that time. And I think, the people who've been involved have done a fantastic job. Just to give you some examples, I mean, the cities, or most of them at any rate, have become really, really vibrant, and they're well served by the arts, theatre, restaurants, you can see how vibrant they are in the changing skylines. And then also, as as one of the panelists was saying earlier, the advisory and funding community has transformed. It's really high quality and diverse. And I will also plug and say that GP Bullhound is a great example of that. I think the most important thing that I would mention, though, is that the critical mass of the technology sector in the region has been a fundamental change. Because when I was recruiting kind of pre-2010, candidates would often be looking at this as a kind of, as a one-off role. And if it didn't work out, then they maybe had to go back to the south. And so their roots were staying elsewhere. And now that has really changed. The vibrancy and diversity and critical mass of the sector is such that when people consider the north and come and take a job in the north, they come and bring their roots with them. Mm-hmm. And so that's great. But what I think makes the north unique is that in addition to all of those really positive changes, the things that were good before haven't changed. So, the north is very authentic. It's very safe and welcoming. The countryside is spectacular. It's beautiful. Particularly now there aren't all those mines all over the place.
Or all the cars driving around at the moment.
Yeah, that's right. And You know, what's really important is that it's affordable. I have two boys, George is 23 and Jacob who's 21. And, you know, they're well-traveled. They've both been to university. My youngest is still there, actually. But my eldest, who went into the job market a couple of years ago, had the choice of going abroad. He had offers of employment in London and the South, but he chose to come back to Manchester and the North. And that's because, you know, they really believe that they can build a really successful and happy life here, and, you know, have access to phenomenal businesses and culture.
And what about funding?
Well, yeah, funding is, I know there are some gaps in the market when I speak to people, but I mean, personally, from my experiences raising money for, you know, very small businesses to public companies, one of my businesses, Pebble, raised 135 million pounds on the public markets just before Christmas. So, you know, I think if there are gaps, those gaps are closing. And I think that the North has the advantage also of you generally find that the deals and the businesses are, you know, more keenly valued than elsewhere.
Okay, well, speaking of value, as somebody who grew that company from £5 million value to £500 million value, what advice would you give to the companies who are thinking about scaling now, coming into what is likely to be a very challenging economic environment?
So the first thing I would say is be confident, because good businesses grow in recessions. And the second thing I would say, and I would say this to any business in any environment, recession or boom, is really focus on team, building a strong team, and really working on culture and values. I think one of the problems with that is that there isn't a single business that I speak to don't say that the team and engagement and culture is the number one priority. But actually, yeah, I don't see that that's the case in all of the time, and it sometimes can be quite flippant. But the thing is that if you get that right, I think you're guaranteed of success. But it's very hard to do, and it requires 100% commitment. But if you do get it right, you know, things tend to go very well.
Any takeaways that you've got from COVID-19, or any indeed from the companies that you sit on the board of?
Yeah, I think on COVID-19, there are, you know, a horrible kind of you know, impactful event. You know, all of the stuff has been over a number of times, I think. So, I mean, what I would say, this is a small personal takeaway, is that I've really enjoyed actually not traveling so much and not dashing around. And I find I'm much more rested and efficient for it. And I like little things, like I was in town a couple of weeks ago driving through town, and there were some people walking down the middle of the road as though cars had never existed. And
yeah, I love it how bikes have retaken London as well.
Yeah, and I thought that was brilliant. And so I've taken a personal objective of reducing the amount of travel I do. I went through my diary for last year, and I worked out that about a third of all the travel I did was really not necessary, and particularly with, you know, the experience of using Zoom and other, you know, technology. I think that's my target. I'm going to cut mine travel by a third and leave it there.
Nice, I like it. And Vypr, anything to tell us about them?
Yeah, Vypr was doing a funding actually just before COVID hit. We probably were 3 weeks away from money. Didn't happen, but you you know, and the business has performed phenomenally well in the period since then, so I'm very excited for that business. I think, you know, if there's one business that I would say I'm really excited about, I'm involved with at the moment, it would be Vypr. One to watch for.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Richard, for your time and for your insights. And thank you for warming your hands here along the beach fire.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, Edie. Thanks, everybody.
All right. We'll let you go. And I'm now really pleased to bring Ed Pryor back to my online stage here. He's going to highlight some of the most promising companies in the region, those 15 Northern Stars.
Great, thank you, Edie, and hi everyone, apologies for that. So, what exactly are Northern Stars? As already mentioned, the criteria for entering the top 100 is for companies to be generating revenues of over £500,000 in the first qualifying period, which is 3 years ago. So for this year's award, it was in 2017. And although it is important to have the benchmark, it does mean that earlier stage businesses aren't eligible to enter. As we saw earlier with the data which Javed presented, there is an increasing amount of investment into the region. And in terms of volume, the majority of this is still at a pre-Series A stage. So either angel investment or seed rounds, which is helping to support the startup ecosystem in the region. Therefore, given the flurry of activity and the increasing strength of the startup ecosystem across all of the North, it's important that the Northern Tech Awards also shines a light on some of the more exciting earlier stage companies and ones we feel have great potential in the coming years. This doesn't necessarily mean that the Northern Stars are the largest companies which don't qualify for the main awards, but instead rather we feel they have something special, either the potential to scale quickly, are being disruptive in their sector, or doing something really unique. Previously, we've picked between 8 and 10 Northern Stars. However, this year, reflecting on the overall growth and the number of exciting startups present across the North, we've selected 15. It's also worth mentioning that all these companies were nominated through our network. So thank you to everyone who suggested companies. We had a much longer list, and as always, the decisions weren't easy. So without further ado, let's look at this year's Northern Stars. So in no particular order, Arctic Shores, AutoPaid, Energy Mine, Immersify Education, The Link App, Music for Pets, My Happy Mind, Nevo, Orca, Shopper.com, Synap, Tickar, Toot Toot, Vet AI, and XR Games. Congratulations to all the founders and the teams at all the Northern Stars. I'm not going to go into the full details of each Northern Star one by one, as there is information in the supporting material, and I am on a strict time slot, even more so now. However, I do want to quickly highlight a couple of interesting takeaway highlights. So this year, there's no specific sector focus. So the companies in the cohort range from Tickar, a consumer fintech app specializing on impact investments, to Vet AI, which uses AI technology to mimic the process of human clinical examination in order to diagnose symptoms in animals, to Toot Toot, which provides safeguarding software to the education sector, giving students a voice and supporting psychological safety and well-being of individuals, something which I'm sure we can all understand the importance of in this day and age and social media. There's also no specific size criteria. Several of the businesses have already raised funding rounds, including XR Games from Futura, The Link App from GC Angels, Arctic Shores from Berenjaya and Candy Ventures, and Orca, which until yesterday was known as Broadstone Engage, they raised from Maven. And finally, I want to briefly mention the founding teams. Almost 50% of the founders of the Northern Stars this year are female. 50% of the teams are from a BAME background. And I think there's been a lot of negative attention around this in recent years. And I think it's great that the North is a place where everyone is able to create fast-growing, exciting startups. One final thing to mention, and as I mentioned earlier, the Northern Stars are nominated and suggested to us. So if you would like to nominate anyone, perhaps yourself, for next year's awards, then please don't hesitate to contact us. And with that, back to you, Edie.
Thank you very much, Ed. So as you know, we are here to celebrate the Northern Tech Awards top 100 fastest growing technology companies. shining a particular light on the 15 largest growing tech companies with revenues over £10 million in 2017. So without further ado, let's have a look at that final ranking and the fastest growing company of the year. So congratulations to Miss Group. And I'm really very happy now to have Matthias Kaneteg. He's the founder and CEO of Miss Group. Join me here in my virtual stage. So Matthias, can we have you on video, please? While he comes up, I'll just tell you that Miss Group provides domain registration, site building, website hosting, and email management, primarily to SMEs.
Yes, thank you very much.
Congratulations, and you've even got the award. Well done. Good job.
Yeah, I got it yesterday. Thank you very much.
So you actually closed a deal with private equity investor Perwin at the end of February.
Yeah.
Very good timing as well, allowing BGF to exit. And tell me a little bit more about the company and give me a scale of that growth.
Yeah, so we've been doing acquisitions the last 2 years. But we started with growing organically. So the 2 first years were only focusing on growing organically. The company is only 6 years old, so a very young company still. But then we took in BGF. Prior to that, we actually took in Harbert, took in debt funding to do the first acquisition. And then we took in BGF, and we did 6 acquisitions last year. And we started this year with doing 1 acquisition, and we actually ended it in April. So in the middle of the crisis, I would say. So we keep on doing what we're doing.
Amazing. And tell me about that funding journey, because BGF actually left earlier. Is that right? Earlier than expected?
Yes, I think they're very happy with them, with us, and we with them. It was a perfect match, actually. So yeah, we started with the exit already in the beginning of last year. So under the way, the whole year we had a process going on. And it was a little bit delayed because we did 6 acquisitions at the same time. So
busy time.
Yeah, busy time. We were on the DD and we did DD on 6 companies at the same time. So yeah, busy.
And tell me about your growth and why you don't target countries to grow to, but instead languages.
So the thing is, we are an internet marketing company as well. We are very skilled in marketing and sales. And when you do marketing and sales, you do it in a language. You don't have to focus on a country. So we go into Spain, we go into Spanish-speaking markets. Because if we do marketing through Google and so on, both SEO, affiliate marketing, and PPC, then we do it with languages. So why target an audience in Spain if you can target the whole world? For example, US has a lot of Spanish-speaking people. So we're focusing on that instead.
And what's going to be the biggest challenge, do you think, for you in the coming year?
So we have it. So yeah, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. So we want to double this year as well.
Wow.
So we want to take it. We want to take it from 11 million pound of run rate in December EBITDA to north of 20 this year, and yeah, continue growing and finding good acquisitions is the trick, I say. The organic growth we already have. We're probably on 14-15% organic growth, which is a lot in our industry. It's not growing that much with shared web hosting and mass hosting and domain names. But that we already see that is okay. We're doing that. We're probably going to do better. But finding good acquisitions, quality acquisitions in our niche with the right platforms, because we need to have certain platforms to be able to integrate very fast. So integration is everything. So when we integrate a hosting company, after we acquire it, it's usually done in a month. So because we're only using, focusing on cPanel hosting and that kind of hosting companies.
Matthias, thank you so much. It was fantastic to see you here, and congratulations once again.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So now on to our next award, the fastest growing larger company of the year, and a reminder to you of the award criteria. The 15 fastest growing larger companies had a revenue of over £10 million in 2017. Congratulations to Evolution Funding. And I'm really pleased now to welcome Lee Streets, the CEO of Evolution Funding. Hello, Lee. Welcome and congratulations.
Hello. Hi. Thank you. And I've got the award as well, so hopefully you can see that.
That's right. Just bring it close to the screen. Well done. Good job. So thank you very much. Evolution Funding is the UK's leading motor finance broker, generating year-on-year growth across all of its divisions. But we're in a very interesting time now with not driving our cars very much.
Yeah.
So tell me what the biggest challenges are you think you're going to face as an industry over the next 12 months.
Yeah, well, obviously, we provide motor finance mainly through car dealerships. Most of our clients have been closed since lockdown, so we saw a drastic reduction in our revenues in April. So our revenues fell by just under 90%. So luckily they're rebounding fast. I think we were better placed than most because we have a lot of online technology that we provide to dealers. So we're seeing a huge amount of upturn in customers applying remotely and looking to execute their loan agreement remotely rather than going into the dealership. That's something that we think more and more dealers will need over the time period. So yeah, quite a sharp contraction in business initially, but we're certainly seeing the signs of things improving, and obviously, hopefully next week, car dealerships reopen as well.
So what challenges do you think you face as a founder once your business has already achieved scale?
Challenges that we face as a founder when you get to scale, I think for me, certainly in our business has been, how do you recognize the right time to bring new people in? To bring new people in that will support doing things differently, maybe bring people in to plug gaps that we have in the business. We've probably gone on the conservative side. We never until last year had any external funding, so everything was through generation of profits. So we were probably a little bit conservative when we chose to bring people in, and that probably, with hindsight, sort of delayed some of our growth.
So how do you think you'll overcome those kind of challenges in the future?
Well, last year we took a private equity investment. So I think having that different insight from a partner, bringing in non-execs to our board, has given us a bit different dynamic. It's given us a different thought process. So we've already changed that way of thinking. We've brought in new people, brought in a chief innovation officer. We're investing obviously in future growth. So I think it's just having those different viewpoints on your board.
And tell me about what you're targeting for the next 5 years.
Yeah, well, very, very short term, it's to get back to pre-COVID levels of revenue and EBITDA. We were a very successful business from a profitability point of view. So we need to return to that. We need to capitalize on some of the opportunities that are fast emerging in our sector. Motor finance has been a slow adopter of digital technology. A lot of the work was still done in the showroom. That is going to significantly change. It already is changing. So we need to capitalize on the tech solutions that we offer on that. So I think that's something. We've doubled the business in the last 5 years without doing acquisitions. We want to double again. So for us, that's taking the loans that we broker from just over half a billion to over £1 billion worth of loans per annum. So yeah, that's without acquisitions. And if we can, we'd like to do an acquisition or two as well.
All right, Lee, thank you very much for joining us, and congratulations again.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Thank you.
So I'd like to extend a really special thank you to our sponsors and the partners for making this event possible. It has been a really great pleasure for me to be with you, and I'm really pleased now to invite Hugh Campbell back onto stage.
Hi, Edie. Thank you for that. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you all for joining us. Particular thanks to our wonderful founders, to Richard, Carl, Mal, Matthias and Lee. I mean, this is what it's all about. It's about not just winning, but building fantastic businesses. Of course, to our sponsors and all of you on the webinar that made it into the top 100. I can tell you it's not at all easy to do, particularly in this kind of climate. And I guess one parting comment now, I mean, let's dig in over the next few months. Let's work hard to fight back the tides of the recession, spread the word about Northern Tech, and we look forward to seeing you in person in Leeds in March next year. Thank you so much for joining, and stay safe. Bye for now.